In my last video, I reviewed all of the public multi-storey car parks in Aberdeen from the point of view of a pedestrian. I did worry that it was a bit of a stupid idea, but luckily people seemed to get what I was going for. But I did also get quite a few comments pointing out that I'd missed a load of multi-storeys owned by companies in Aberdeen, so I thought I'd make a follow-up video covering those. Unlike in my last video, I definitely wouldn't recommend parking in any of these car parks. Well, unless you work there, of course. And for any criminals watching, these car parks are terrible choices for thievery and vandalism. Practically all of them have 24-hour security staff and a million CCTV cameras, even the disused ones. I'm not going to try and enter any multi-stories that have restricted access or no entry signs, because I don't want to get into any legal trouble, and I also won't be showing any that are attached to housing, because I think it's a bit unfair to draw attention to where random people live. If, however, I've accidentally included the car park for a secret government nuclear bunker or orphanage or something, then let me know and I'll edit it out. To save time, I'm going to divide the car parks into rough geographical sections: North, West, South, Central and Rubislaw. Let's get started in the north with Aberdeen Airport. This multi-storey serves as the short-stay car park for Aberdeen Airport, and I'd never actually been in it before. Normally if I'm flying I'll get a bus or a taxi or something. It's bloody expensive too, costing £7 for 20 minutes, but I suppose that's to be expected. Not a problem for me though, I cycled there. It's comprised of 3 stories, but at the time of making this video the top story was blocked off by barriers. Not a problem for me though, I cycled there. The upper floor is spacious and open, and offers some lovely views of, well, the airport, which is great news if you're an aviation nerd. Unfortunately, it's one of the few things I'm not nerdy about, so I'm going to give this one a B. Just round the corner from the airport comes Aker Solutions car park, which is only 2 stories, but has a top floor that's pretty nice and open. Being in the middle of an industrial estate, there isn't really much to see, but there are bits and pieces of greenery to the east, which are pretty nice I suppose. Also, Aker appears to have a putting green on their front lawn, which is pretty cool I suppose. Let's say C tier. Not too far from Aker, and also known for the time being as P&J Live, Tekk is Aberdeen's flagship conference and events centre, replacing the AICC, and also served as a massive inoculation centre during COVID. But other than getting my jabs, I haven't personally been to Tekk very much. Still, they had some great stuff on this year, like Bongo's Bingo 90s Special, Beyond Van Gogh Pilates Experience, Jimmy Carr. Now, Tekka's car park isn't technically a multi-storey, it's just an underground car park, or as they call it, a sub-T car park, which I believe can be treated with hormone replacement therapy these days. But I think it's a pretty cool building nonetheless. The car park itself isn't much to write home about, but it's massive and has some great emergency exits, I suppose. Let's give it a C. Now let's head to West Hill to check out Techneep FMC's car park. Techneep have had a presence in West Hill for ages, but around 2014 they expanded and added this multi-storey car park. It's got 4 stories, so it is pretty tall, but being slap bang in the middle of an industrial estate there isn't really much of a view. There are some trees I suppose, but nothing to write home about. Let's say D tier. It's much the same story, no pun intended, with Subsea's car park. It's only 2 stories, so it isn't as tall as Techneep's, but the view is slightly better, with a green space behind it that has some nicer trees, as well as a view of a hill in the distance. C tier. Kings Wells has a much better showing with Ceenock's car park in the Prime 4 business estate. Despite only having 2 stories, it has some great views of the hills to the south, and the Den Burn, which runs all the way into the sea via the city centre and formed part of the valley that Union Street now crosses. It also gives its name to the Den Burn car park, which I covered in my last video. We'll be returning to the Den Burn later in this video. I'll give Ceenock a B. And last, but certainly not least, we have this lovely car park at the west end of the Prime 4 development, which serves Scottish and Southern Energy Networks, or SSEN. I think it has 3 stories, but only 1 is above ground level, so it isn't particularly tall. Despite this, I think it has the best views of any car park in the area, with an even better view of the hills to the south and the Kingswells home farmhouse to the east. I'll give this one an A. If you follow the Den Burn east, you eventually get to Rubislaw, which contains this industrial estate that people sometimes call the American Quarter. This is because every building in the estate was at one time occupied by a major US oil company, namely Marathon, ConocoPhillips and Chevron, and also Britannia Operator Limited, or BAL, which was a joint venture between Chevron and Conoco. I also have a personal connection with this area, having worked for all 4 of those companies at one time or another. The area is also famous for the former Rubislaw granite quarry, which is the reason Aberdeen is the colour that it is, and also where this channel gets its name. It was closed in the early 70s, and these days is full of water, seagulls, and at least 1 Dell Optiplex Office PC, ask me how I know. When the oil price crashed in the mid-2010s, practically all the American companies abandoned their North Sea operations, so this estate is a shadow of its former self. But it does still contain 4 multi-storey car parks, all of which are now disused, so let's get into it. We'll start with Royfold House, which was Ball's headquarters. When I worked there, one of my jobs was to carry computer backup tapes between Royfold House and Seafield House in special locked bags we used to call ball bags. But the building seems to have been unoccupied for most of the last decade. Certainly it seemed pretty deserted when I rocked up on a Tuesday afternoon. Anyway, at the far end of Royfold House's car park is this funky spiral ramp that takes you to the lower level, and it's still in pretty good condition. There isn't really much to see down here, but I really like these weird liminal nooks and crannies you come across when exploring car parks. On the upper floor, if you push through some of the bushes, you can get a pretty good view of the quarry, although not as good as the view from the Queen's Road end. In the other direction, you can also kinda see out to Torry, but not very well. Let's say A for this one. Next, let's take a look at Charter House, which once upon a time housed Marathon Oil. The building itself has a lovely surface-level rear car park, which is right next to our old friend the Den Burn, looking very pretty, having travelled several miles since we last saw it, and making this by far the best fag break spot in this whole estate. After this though, the Den Burn River disappears off under Anderson Drive and out to sea. It does stop in a few other, interesting places on its way there, but that's a story for another day, or possibly a more anonymous YouTube channel. But we're here to talk about multi-stories, not rivers. So if we go around to Charter House's front car park, you can see this ramp leading down into the disused underground section. I don't know how long it's been disused, but certainly long enough for a family of pigeons to take up residence. The motion-sensitive lights still work though, and it generally seems to be in okay nick. Let's give it an A for the general creepiness value. There is another multi-storey round the back. I'm not 100% sure this was for Charter House, but either way it's also disused. Far less creepy this time though, and relatively devoid of interesting ramps or wildlife. We'll say D tier for this one. The upper floor of the same multi-storey is used by the H1 building, which was called Seafield House in my day, and is the biggest building in the estate, having housed Chevron as well as a big chunk of Shell. Accordingly, it also has more car parking spaces, but the coolest part is it also has a massive underground parking area, which you get to via these spiral ramps at each end. Again, this area is disused now, but it's in much worse condition than the other disused areas, being full of leaves and rubbish and having obvious problems with water ingress. There's lots of warning tape everywhere, and the place echoes like a tomb. Still, the automatic lighting system seems to work fine, and even better, it also has an automatic ventilation system, which nearly made me poo myself when I triggered it. Anyway, I'm giving it an S tier. It's a bizarre, creepy space that sort of embodies the effects the mid-2010s oil crash had on Aberdeen as a whole. Now let's move on to the city centre, with the Meridian building on Union Wynd. In my day, this building was occupied by yet another American oil major, ExxonMobil, who are arguably the scummiest and most profitable of all the American oil majors, although I don't want to let Chevron and Conoco off the hook either. Along with most of the other Yanks, they fled the city after the 2014 oil price crash, leaving a mostly empty building, although according to Google Maps, Childline have an office there. Anyway, we're here for the car park. The lower floor is dingy but relatively free of pish, and the top floor offers a view of the rear of the Meridian building, which has this banging mural, presumably part of the Aberdeen New Art Initiative. There's also views of the neighbouring Union Plaza, which I've always thought was one of Aberdeen's more evil-looking buildings, and fittingly now has a mural of 2 seagulls shitting on a little boy. Well, I say little, he's like 5 stories tall. Anyway, let's give this a B, nothing wrong with it. Next to the River Dee, we have this weird construction, which is sorta 2 buildings in one. Consort House comprises the north end, which houses Petrofac, and the south end is called Bridge View, presumably because it has a lovely view of Vicky Bridge. Not that you'd know that from the car park, however. It's a 3-storey affair that's surrounded on all sides by the building itself, and so despite the top floor being open air, you can't actually see anything except offices. So I don't really have much to say about this place. I have been told that it has an excellent smoking shelter though, and yeah, seems pretty good. So let's give it a D. Alright, this is a good one. Also known as the EQ building, Annan House sports this enormous multi-storey out the back, which if you climb to the top of, has some stunning views of the surrounding area. To the east you can see bits of the harbour and the nearby old buildings, as well as this patch of waste ground, always nice to see. To the west you can see bits of the railway as well as other old buildings, although this grating kinda gets in the way. Best of all though, to the south you can see the absolutely beautiful River Dee, as well as the best views of Torry we've had so far. We might have even been able to see the Vicky Bridge if it wasn't for the fact that our old friend Consort House is in the way. In fact, I'm going to bump it down to an F just for that. By the way, I got some comments mocking my last video for pointing out Torry so much. I don't know why everyone takes the piss out of Torry. I lived there for a couple of years and I really liked it. Anyway, I'm going to give Annan House an A tier. It probably has the best views of any car park in the city centre. If Consort House wasn't in the way, that might have even been an S tier. Next to the north dock of the harbour, we have the Lime Street car park, which is another one with a mural on the outside. Always nice to see. Being smack bang in the middle of the harbour industrial zone, I was hoping this car park would offer some nice views of the harbour itself, but unfortunately the view south is blocked by the nearby Voyager House and Horizons House, which this car park presumably serves. So the only views are to the north, and this could almost be this video's catchphrase, being right in the middle of an industrial park, there isn't much to see. Let's say C tier. Heading south a little bit, we come to the car park for the Nuffield Gym on Justice Mill Lane, and there's not really much to say about this one. Despite being tall at 5 stories, there's pretty much nothing to see, just some blocks of flats and abandoned mattresses. The building itself does look kinda interesting, but not enough to give it any more than D tier. Moving on to the southern part of Aberdeen now, we come to Park's Jaguar and Land Rover garage in Tullis, which was built in around 2016, and it's not obvious from the road, but it has a 2-level multi-storey car park attached to it. The top floor actually has quite a good view of the surrounding area, and even further, you can even see some of the tower blocks near the Aberdeen Royal Infirmary. Unfortunately, it does have quite a high fence, so getting a good view is a bit tricky. I would put this car park in the C tier, but it also has the honour of being the only car park I've visited where the company actually gave me permission to film there, so I'm going to bump them up to a B. If you need a Land Rover or Jaguar, then give Parks Motor Group a call today. Asda Garth D. D tier? Another car park I have a personal connection with, having worked for Wood, for a few years before being made redundant in 2015. Well, I say made redundant, but normally redundancy involves the elimination of your role rather than hiring a bunch of new people in Houston and making you train them on the job you're about to be let go from. Anyway, while I've never set foot in Wood's new building, I did watch it being constructed from my office in the nearby and now demolished Trafalgar House, so I thought I'd take a jaunt up to have a look at the completed building, since they have a multi-storey car park out the back. And what a car park it is! Despite only having 2 stories, it's extremely spacious and open, and has some utterly breathtaking views of Aberdeen. You can see practically the entire city all laid out in front of you, as well as out to sea and all the way up the coastline. I think that's Cruden Bay in the background. There's also a load of rolling hills and countryside to the west, and it even smells nice thanks to the nearby gorse bushes. Despite my resentment of Wood Group, I can't in good conscience give this car park anything but an S tier. The views are by far the best of any multi-storey in Aberdeen. I would almost consider working for the company again just to be able to enjoy this view every day. Knowing Wood Group though, IT is probably in a windowless basement office. Stop the presses! As I was editing this video, I realised I'd completely forgotten the multi-storey behind BP's new building in Dice. Well, I call it their new building, I just checked and it's getting on for 20 years since it opened. God, I'm getting old. It's just a 2-storey affair, but it's got quite a large footprint, so it can take a lot of cars. Again, views are mainly of the Farburn industrial estate, including the bit of land where I think BP's previous building was. I can't really remember. There are some trees as well, but nothing hugely exciting. We'll maybe give it a C. So, what did we learn here today? Well, apparently the best 2 private multi-stories in Aberdeen belong to the H1 building, formerly Seafield House, and Wood Group. H1 building because it's creepy and interesting, and Wood Group because of its stunning views. We only have one F-tier car park, and that's Bridgeview/Consort House, mainly because of missed opportunity. It could have had some of the best views of any car park, being right next to the River Dee and Vicky Bridge, but instead it actually blocks the view from other nearby buildings. Anyway, that's about it for this video. I'm not really sure what I want to do for my next video. I do actually own a car now, so maybe I'll revisit some of the multi-stories from the point of view of a punter. Being a 2010 diesel, my car is extremely low emission zone uncompliant, but the Les is a lot smaller than most people think. There are actually only 3 multi-stories that are affected by it, namely Chapel Street, NCP Ship Row and ACP Hardgate, so maybe I'll borrow someone else's car to do those 3. Thanks very much for watching, like, subscribe, comment, etc. Bye bye!